Welcome to Disruptive Successor, a show for next generation leaders in family businesses and entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the status quo and take their existing business to a whole new level. We all know that what got us here isn't going to get us there. This show will provide inspiration, advice, and resources to help you create massive impact. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Hi, it's Jonathan Goldhill, and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. Managing wealth can be a very intimidating process. My guest today turns anxiety into empowerment by working to develop a set of financial goals and a game plan to help her clients achieve what they want. My guest today is Abbe Large. She met her husband while working at a firm now called Lenox Advisors, a firm he co-founded to provide insurance, retirement planning, business succession planning, and generational planning to high net worth clients. As a dedicated professional whose drive is to put her clients' best interests first, and with nearly 30 years of experience, Abbe is highly skilled in financial services, estate planning, and asset management solutions. As a senior VP at Lenox Advisors, she works with corporate clients to structure strategic employee benefits as well as executive carve-out programs. But what's unique about Abbe is she passionately advocates for families and individuals dealing with difficult financial realities. She navigated some financial complexities of her own when caring for her father through his battle with pancreatic cancer. Abbe faced the same challenges she regularly helps others overcome, and gained a unique appreciation for the importance of being supported through these challenging times with grace and dignity. She believes that when money is removed from the equation, people can focus on what truly matters, which is love and family. Abbe's insightful empathy has made her a valuable resource to her clients in times of need. Abbe, welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate being here.
So where do we start with all this? So much goes on with just developing a client-first mentality, and the last thing people probably want to talk about is insurance products and money and all those nitty-gritty things. But it sounds like your perspective is very holistic and comes from a people-first place, really trying to understand your clients and their relationship to their family members, to money. So tell us a little bit about where you begin when you start working with a client, maybe, or you know, how you came to be the person you are today.
Well, that's a loaded question on that last bit, but I will say that I've never seen an application that had a question that asked, "Do you like insurance?" But I have known for a fact that people love what it does, right? And what it does is it provides tax-free dollars in the worst moments of people's lives when they need it the most. And so I think that's really important. But to answer your question with regard to the relationship of money, I find that is a extremely interesting question to ask people who are ready and willing to get started on a financial plan. And I think the first step in helping anybody is to figure out how they feel about certain things. Obviously, there's a risk, a risk profile that you have to go through. But I go a little deeper and I kind of ask, what was your relationship when you were a kid with your parents with money? And I really am, I'm a deep listener. So I just sort of just shut my mouth and let them go. And the differences that you hear in their experiences that they've had growing up and their experiences they've had with handling money, appreciating money, respecting money, understanding money, how it works, the velocity of money. It could be polar opposite. And oftentimes, the articulation of the feeling and the experiences that each other hear are sometimes for the first time. So there's very deep conversations that I have to determine the risk profile, but most importantly, really diving in deep to figure out how I could make sure we have the right game plan so that they can achieve what they want.
Would you be able to say that and maybe make some generalizations around people's relationship with money from your experience, or in talking to your clients? Do you find that there are certain consistent themes in people's relationship with the money, like the answers that you get? Are they what are the things that you maybe hear commonly said by people?
I hear one person grew up extremely wealthy, private plane wealthy, and father went bankrupt, and she lived through that. And so when she thinks of money, she kind of hoards it a bit and is worried about losing it. But now I understand the why.
Right.
So
people's stories get in the way of their evolving as people. I mean, I can think of a couple of clients that I have that I work with. They keep the money very close to the family. They don't let outsiders professionally manage the money. They don't let have a controller who has access to the corporate checkbook. And it's because they have seen embezzlement from families, from their prior families' businesses. And so that fear holds them back.
That is also another example of an experience that happened that creates a behavior that translates into a financial behavior, right? And so what I want to know when I'm speaking to people is not necessarily who you are, but why you are. Why are you irritated if someone says something about whatever, and like what are the triggers? I think it's really important to understand that, and because I'm building a team. That team is my client with me, and we have to trust each other. We have to be open with each other so that I'm able to do the best job that I can do. It's like going to a general practitioner or your cardiologist or your doctor. They want to know every inch of you,
right?
In order to make recommendations, and that's I take it as seriously. So,
I mean, I'm not sure I agree with you on the cardiologist, but I think too many doctors just practice medicine and they don't look at the holistic view. And as I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about and understanding more about your practice and what you do, you're almost filling a role that maybe a therapist could be or should be, or a personal development coach or a life coach. But these issues are just not brought up, and they're necessary to talk about when managing someone's wealth, when talking about their life goals, when talking about life planning. And so people like you fulfill the role of the financial therapist, if you will.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I got very excited about a thought of mine, which is people just need to decide without deciding. And that's by the way, that's mostly why people can't decide on the guardianship for their wills or the trustees of their trust or who should write the check or uh, trust for managing their money. It's the reason they can't decide is because a few things. They don't know who to trust. They they're afraid. There's anxiety, there's feelings there, right? Behind that non-decision, that uncommittal moment in time, there's this feeling that I try to get to very quickly. I'm one of those. I've married my intuitiveness
Mm-hmm.
with the mathematics of financial planning, if you will. I've married them. So I bad joke, but they don't call me Dear Abby for nothing, right? Like very
Great.
bad joke, I know. But it's true. I enjoy this psychological part, the emotional part of why people make decisions. And I think that, someone could say, "Oh, how did you put away all that money and now it's grown to this, and who did you use and how did you do it?" And sure, anyone can tell you that, but at the end of the day, how you do it is you decide.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Decide.
so what are some of the complexities in deciding, or maybe some stories here? I imagine, for instance, that husbands and wives coming together to discuss these things with you, um, they're maybe not on the same page. Maybe there's a situation where I don't actually even know. The husband's built a very successful business, made the money. Um, they have kids. They have different ideas about how to parent this child. Maybe one kind of spoils the child, the other feels like the child is too entitled. I mean, do these types of conversations, can we expect to have these types of conversations when meeting with people like you or when meeting with you?
It's funny, you rattled off a lot of examples, and not one of them rattled me
Okay.
because I speak about that stuff all the time.
Right.
And if you're looking for a specific example of, you know, what I heard from a couple about the differences in how they felt, um, or a couple where one wants nothing to do with the finances and all the burdens put on the other person. There's a lot of different scenarios like this, but what I find that is universal is that I don't care how little or big you want to be involved in these kinds of decisions. When there's financial decisions being made in the household, it's something that you definitely speak about together. It's
Hmm.
not you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
You have to, right?
Right.
You just have to figure out how that works. And I think that what makes me unique in a way, then, because someone would say, well, they wouldn't they wouldn't go there. They wouldn't think to go there. They wouldn't ask. They wouldn't know what to ask to even get there. So it would just be like, okay, see you later. Bye.
Hmm.
Opportunity gone,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but what about intergenerationally? So I work with a lot of family businesses, and there's a transfer. Typically, my clients are transferring from Gen 1 to Gen 2. Um, it starts with transferring just some of the authority and decision making and the leadership, and that's a lot easier to do than to start transferring the equity in the real in my clients who look at their business as a business first and a family second. um, they evaluate the value of the company, and they do a transfer either through their lifetime gift tax exemption, or maybe there's a purchase. or an earnout. These are difficult conversations, though, I think, for Gen 1 and Gen 2, or intergenerational transfer. It could be 3 and 4, sorry, generations, but difficult conversations. The old style of decision making was an authoritarian, this is what I'm going to do. The man made the decision. That certainly changed. Now it's the man and the woman, the husband and the wife, if they are together still, making the decision. But now I think it's more opening up to where there's more transparency intergenerationally between the parents and the next gen. And I think these are difficult conversations. I mean, are you able to facilitate this kind of a dialogue? Is that some of the work that you do with your clients?
Yes, I have fortunately been in the business long enough to have my Gen 1 clients. Now I have my Gen 2 clients from my Gen 1 clients. And you're getting old
That's
when
great.
now.
and you're good
If
also.
I go to Gen 3, then
right, then you're really old.
Wow.
Been around or experienced.
But what's important is that if there's a Gen 1 that wants Gen 2 to be the successor of their company, yes, of course, we discuss succession planning in great detail. And we open up the floor to, the CPAs and the attorneys and the investment advisors, and making sure that all of the documentation is correct. And of course, but when but this is a multi question, because there are people who, it's poo-poo to talk about money.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gen 2 are taking care of Gen 1 and Gen 3, and we'll call that the sandwich years.
Yes.
Right. And so, yes, I speak to my clients about those sandwich years because, they're just under those what are they, Gen X, I think they are. I think that's the generation.
Probably, or millennials. I'm not sure.
The millennials, I'm not sure either, but they are in the thick of trying to take care of their elderly parents and pay for help and do all of that gabagook that happens when people get older, because it's almost like a Benjamin Button. They turn into children and stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness gracious. And then you've got, kids that they're still trying to, put through college. And that generation, that sandwich generation, it is, when we work together, do you have a long-term care policy? Do your parents have a long-term care policy? What kind of caregiver court? What kind of conversations are you having? So I give them the tools to be able to ask the question to Gen 1 in a way that it's Gen 1's idea, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I always say, start with, have you considered? Because when you say, have you considered, then ask your question.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow it just turns into their idea. And it has to be their idea because they feel like they're losing control. And they are. Whether they're losing control of their business or their minds or their bodies, they're losing control in some capacity. And that's where the head banging comes into play, and the stubbornness and the ego and the pride. And when you understand things like that, and you have tools and language that you can provide to clients to be able to talk through those tough and very difficult and emotional conversations, that's what really matters there, right? Giving them the tools to be able to communicate is something that I feel very strongly about, and yeah, it's tough. I also have clients who have a Gen 1 client. They have a Gen 2 that does not want to get into their business, but is giving them millions and millions of dollars because the lifetime exemption is sunsetting at the end of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So our trust and estate attorneys and us, we've been quite busy because people are transferring wealth. And when you transfer wealth, it becomes, one of the questions that I always ask is, how aware are they of having all this money in their trust? What kind of conversations are you having surrounding that? Would you like some help? Would you like to have a meeting? Would you like to review? I have a review next week with a client, Gen 1, who his Gen 2 is a trustee of a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been, talking to my client, and he's been begrudging, like really like giving me the Heisman, like, no, don't, you're not touching you're not speaking to anybody, not in such a way, but just hasn't addressed it. And finally I said, this is complicated stuff. There's investment decisions, administrative decisions. This is really complicated. And he's going to have a family of his own, a business to run. He's going to need some help. You might want to consider having an institution. I recommended the institution as a co-trustee. It's in perpetuity, which caused Gen 1 to then go to Gen 2 and say, hey, get your shit together. It's like, we need to know what's going on here. You're going to be the trustee of this dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know. And so now Gen 2 emerges. And it was my client's idea. You see how that works?
Yeah, I do. I was just watching season 2 trailer from Succession, which I would imagine you've probably seen.
Oh my God, I have not. Everybody tells me to watch it.
Oh gosh, so
past this the first and second episodes.
Well, then we won't go into detail on it, but it's loosely based on Rupert Murdoch's family and his legacy. And Rupert Murdoch, who I think is in his 90s, I forget how old he is, but he finally just passed the torch on to his adult child, who's I think in his 60s. And I mean, it shows you the control and the power that this one individual wields in the show. And it's quite a contested, it's an interesting show. I didn't like it. I found it the characters fairly despisable. But it shows you how contested authority, power, control, money, wealth, can be, and how difficult it is. And in my experience working with clients, I find that I see a full spectrum. I see a spectrum of people who are very generous and trusting of their children and want to pass the baton, and they want to empower them, and they don't feel like, well, my kid's going to throw me out of my home if I, put it in a trust and turn it over to them. That it would be a irrevocable trust, I mean. And then the other is the ones who are, control, tight fists, kind of one I just described from Succession, the character being Logan Roy, and doesn't relinquish anything. And I think also what I find on a different dimension is that the person who has the ear, so the confidant of, the trusted advisor or the quarterback in this, can really vary. It could be the insurance person, it could be the accountant, it could be the lawyer, it could be the spouse.
What business is done when there's timing and chemistry.
Yes.
There is just no way around it. And so I count on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The chemistry. By the way, a little factoid, and I think this is, I believe it is Rupert Murdoch. I'll fact check this when we're done, but I believe he purchased millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of life insurance and put it into an irrevocable life insurance trust and spent every single penny during his lifetime.
Wow.
Or gave it away, whatever he did, but died with nothing in his estate.
Live rich, die poor. Huh?
And the life insurance paid out income tax free and estate tax free. Can you get over that move?
That's amazing. That's
how
crazy.
Brilliant! How brilliant is that?
That's pretty crazy.
I know it. Yeah, I think a lot of what this industry, if we're going to talk holistically of just the industry and these particular situations that some of you, our listeners, might be going through or pondering, there's all sorts of people in my industry, in the life insurance industry, right? But there are very few like me. And the reason I say this is because, yes, I have been doing this a long time. And what I see are people that don't care about people. They just care about their pockets and the commissions they're making. And they don't understand the products, and they're pushing products. They don't understand the problem. They push a solution. It drives me bananas because they're you sit there and say you're giving the entire industry a bad name. On the other side, there's only a few of us out there that are really doing the right thing. And so maybe we stick out, right?
So you're saying that more people are transactionally driven than relationally driven in your industry. I mean, it's not been my experience, but I don't
100%.
I don't tend to buy insurance products. And I think that relationship is primary. It comes first before I'm going to buy anything from somebody.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a big differentiator here.
Okay.
Just last week, our firm, Lenox Advisors, we have a dedicated conservation team which conserves business. So if a client is, somebody is traveling, they miss the premium notice, or whatever, maybe they're sick or whatever. There are a lot of unintentional lapses that happen in our business, and no one cares. Mm. But we have a team that really does. And so we make sure that the business stays on the books. And there was a gentleman who called the insurance company, and he did get a hold of somebody, but they weren't really helping him. He was trying to get a hold of the agent. The agent happened to be me. I don't know why he couldn't get a hold of me. I'm publicly listed. It didn't make any sense, but whatever. I got wind of this, and it turns out that he was going to cancel his policy because, he couldn't get to the right person. And it turned out that he's actually needing to go on a claim. So person A, which is, I'm a person who's been disabled for a long time. Because I'm so proud, I don't want to put in a claim, but I have this policy and I can't get anyone on the phone, so I'm going to cancel it. Now I'm really in need of money. I have no income. This guy could become homeless. Who knows?
Right.
I got a hold of him. I made sure we connected with him. I mean, I went so far as to go on LinkedIn to find him. And whatever, we connected and I got it straight. And it turns out that I put him in touch with the head of claims at the insurance carrier, and we're holding his hand through a disability claim so that they can adjudicate it in a good amount of time, right? So person B is someone who can stay in his home and who doesn't have to deplete his retirement assets at this age, and can pass along his assets to the next generation and deal with his disability and dignity, versus person B, who would have been SOL. And that is because of me and our team at Lenox Advisors.
So is there something, let's just dive a little bit deeper into the insurance industry. There must be something that can be said that's very positive about some of the big insurance players, because they've got a brand that they have to uphold, and their brand is only as good, if you will, as their weakest links, their weakest agents. I mean, I would think the Mass Mutuals and Northwesterns and New York Life and probably there's others you would name. Those are the ones that come to my mind. That these are companies that need to make sure that their brand integrity stays intact, and their advisors are their brand on the street.
You're right. And
so, but there's something broken.
I often wonder if I often wonder if they want all the business off the books, because then there's more money. I don't know. I just, there's a distribution system, you're right. And that distribution system it's not right. It's broken. It's broken from lack of data, antiquated systems. But at Lenox, we don't have that. Our data is accurate. Our integrity is high. And our only mission is to make sure we're doing what's right for the client. And
so tell us a little bit more about Lenox Advisors. Where are you based? Who are your typical clients?
So our headquarters are at 90 Park Avenue in New York City. That's our headquarters. I was housed there for quite a while, and then I moved to Connecticut. And so now I'm located in our Stamford, Connecticut office.
Okay.
We have offices in Los Angeles, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Okay.
So I was actually instrumental in starting the San Francisco market. And our market are usually Wall Street executives, hedge fund companies. We do where we are the best on the market with executive carve-out programs. But our resume stems from, medium-sized hedge funds to worldwide headquarters and very large organizations that we handle as our corporate clients. And so through that corporate client relationship, we meet our executives that way and build individual relationships. And so that's how the seed gets started, if you will.
And so some of the executive carve-out programs and employee benefits, we're talking about things like defined benefit plans.
Yes, we can talk about deferred compensation programs. We can talk about supplemental disability insurance, supplemental life insurance, things that are portable, things that people would be buying retail, but they have the option to buy it at a deep discount without any medical or financial underwriting. That's a big deal. And so we are experts at that, because instead of just throwing some brochure at somebody or some link and say, here it is, sign up, we're actually in there meeting them, understanding them, educating them, and teaching them, what they can do to do better there, and how important their company feels that they went out of their way and did their exhaustive due diligence to hire us to be that bridge for them. So in essence, we're actually helping, HR. We're an extension of them.
Right.
And so those relationships are strong, and there are many, and it's all over the country.
Sounds great. Well, Abby, it's been great having you on the show today. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I imagine that your clients could talk to you and you could talk to them for hours. You seem deeply passionate and compassionate. And let's just wrap this up with, so you went through this personal experience that we didn't talk at all about with your father. And that was probably pretty transformative. How did that change your practice?
It made me unapologetic to any response that I was giving out to people who didn't get it, or who denied what would happen, or I was unapologetic because it happened to me.
Right. It could happen to anyone.
And I know what it feels like. And at the end of the day, it sucked.
Yeah.
It is the only way. It is the only word. It just sucked. And I have a whole new appreciation for the products that I show people, because I know what it does. And if I had to worry about the money, it would suck even more.
Right.
I didn't have to worry about the money. So, as you mentioned earlier, the only thing I was able to focus on was my dad, loving him, and our family. And that was the most important thing for him before he died. And that that's in perpetuity in my mind,
Sure. Sure.
And that's what money did.
Yep.
So money can't buy happiness. No, it cannot.
No.
But it can take the drama out of any conversation.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through that, and it sounded like it really imbued your practice with a whole new dimension of understanding and empathy, which is so powerful. And it was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yes. And so if people want to find you, Lenox Advisors, you can be found on LinkedIn. It's Abbe Large, just like it sounds. And of course, at the website. So, Abbe, thanks for being on the show today. And folks, you know the drill. If you like this show, please give us a good rating on your listening podcast application of choice and share this show with others. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Thank you for joining us on the Disruptive Successor podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, review, and share with a friend who would benefit from the message. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, go to disruptivesuccessor.com.